Hello, participants of the Lead Your Team to Greatness Masterclass. We've made it. We are on day 4 on this amazing journey. And we are in our 4th D, which is do. Day number 1, define the problem or the goal. Day number 2 was develop ideas. Day number 3 was decide. And today is do. How can you inspire your team for action? And how can you plan for action? This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where we're going to land this plane. And I wanted to share with you, in full disclosure, I've spent the last couple of hours crying. Yes, because I had a conversation with one of my team members. And it was an uncomfortable conversation. There was a negotiation about money. And somehow I was very affected emotionally about this. And first of all, I wanted to share this because some people, the empaths among the audience, will perceive it, that my energy today is a little bit different than it was the previous 3 days. But also, I was wondering, this happened today when I'm leading the last part of this Lead Your Team to Greatness Masterclass. And I've shared a lot of tools and techniques and a lot of psychological biases and insights. And a lot of this was rational. And what happened today came to prove to me that leading a team a lot of times is emotional. Leading a team is an exchange of energy. There's also money involved. There's a lot at stake. And our employees, their livelihood at stake. And they're also giving their lives to our business. So there's a lot of mutual expectation. And when either side feels that this is not a win-win, there is a problem. And we've seen this now with the Great Resignation. In the past, it used to be that the employers had most of the power. But now there are so many options. There's the gig economy. People have options. And we need to approach the relationship and even the transactional part of the relationship with our employees as a win-win partnership. Let me know. I'd love to see your comments to what I'm saying, any questions. And so I will start talking a little bit first. I will change the structure of what I was going to talk today, inspired by my experience today. How do we motivate our team to take action? This is a question that I have heard many leaders. They've asked me that. And there's the extrinsic motivation. And the extrinsic motivation is the money and the benefits and the bonuses and whatever stocks, profit shares you have. And that's what you need to do with that is that people feel that's fair. That's okay. What can ruin people's motivation is if they feel their peer is making more money, and we've seen women are underpaid in every single job. This can make them feel that this is not a fair exchange of energy. Money is energy, time is energy. Needs to be a fair exchange of energy. So we need to take care of that. But that's not enough. So if they're not happy with the financial component, it will ruin their motivation. But just paying someone a lot of money does not work. That does not guarantee they will make it motivated. Let me read a comment. How do others hire to get most energy into a team? I was looking for how to complement the team, hiring a person who fills my weak points. Apparently, recognition is highlighted by compensation. Thank you for your comments. Recognition is another extrinsic motivating factor. And for some people, it will be more important than money. That will be you saying words of affirmation, you giving them a good title, or even the sense of progress, a promotion, of evolution. So yes, recognition is important to a lot of people. We need to feel that we're doing a good job and we're recognized. It's also an extrinsic motivation. We're going to talk about more intrinsic motivation in a minute. And I have Harold with his comments. He clarified his questions. How do you hire in your teams or select members for a virtual team to push the energy level up? So I think that's a great question, because if we use the metaphor that we are driving a bus, we need to have the right people on the bus, that everyone wants to be there and wants to go where we're going, and we have the right people in the right seats. So I think, Harold, you're spot on thinking, how can I hire people to bring diversity? How can they complement our weaknesses? One of my most controversial videos on LinkedIn, and I think I have it on YouTube on my Daily Insight series. You can go and see it. But when I posted on LinkedIn, it was very controversial. It was called "Do Not Hire for Culture Fit." Because through all my career, most of the businesses were like very hardcore with their culture, and they were hiring for culture fit. But what is even a culture fit? What this made is that we have businesses that everyone believes the same things, even went to the same schools, thinks the same, and the businesses are not diverse. I was reading yesterday that Facebook had only 4% of Black people in their employee roster, and very little diversity. And we know the lack of women as well. So one tip I would give you, Harold, is don't hire for culture fit. Hire people that share few values. Choose the 3 top values of your business and hire people that share those values, because that means the right people in the right seats in the bus. But also hire people that will complement the team. And yesterday we talked about this productive debate. You want differences, and it won't be comfortable, but it will create better products, better ideas. I have a few more comments. How do you incentivize productivity when a financial bonus or equity is not possible? This is an NGO context. Thank you, Desiree. I've been coaching a company that they do not give bonus to their salespeople. And this is pretty new for me, because before I went into coaching, I was a salesperson, and 75%, my bonus was 75% on top of my salary. So it was a huge variable component plus the stocks. And I was really shocked. How is this team, the salespeople, that doesn't motivate them with bonuses? You'd be surprised. This business is nailing it. They've raised tons of funding. They're doubling their business. So again, the extrinsic motivations are only an issue when people feel they're unfair, when they feel this is like someone else in the business is making more than me. People going into an NGO, and I'll talk about this, the key motivator is meaning. So there are, according to Daniel Pink, and I love to use his model, he has a book called Drive, if you want to go deeper on this. There are 3 intrinsic motivations for work people. One is meaning, which you have abandoned in the NGO. Meaning is feeling that my work matters. And when I coach people, they kind of skip that part. They forget to connect, to inspire their employees of why their work matters. Maybe you need to invite, in the NGO case, invite a beneficiary of the work of the NGO and talk to the employees. Or if you're in a for-profit, bring the customers. If to the employees that are not in touch with the customer, we might lose the meaning of how are we changing lives by being in this business. Bring a customer to talk and share. how their lives were improved. Read through all your Twitter and your reviews, and maybe in every meeting, just read one comment from your community of how your work is changing their lives. As a leader, it's your job to draw that line of how your team's work connects to the meaning, to the mission. How does it have an impact and has a purpose? The second intrinsic motivation, according to Daniel Pink, is mastery. We need to feel that we are good at what we're doing. We need to feel that we're getting better. So could it be training? If there's a possibility. I know there's some organizations that do offer training to NGOs. I think one of those organizations is On Purpose. I'm talking to Desiree specifically here. It is around giving them challenging projects that will stretch their skills and their comfort zone, and they will feel they're getting better. Mastery, feeling that we are building our mastery, is an intrinsic motivation, and we know otherwise you wouldn't be here in this session. I know this is a big motivator for you too. You wouldn't spending your lunch break or whatever time it is in your country coming to a session on LinkedIn about how to lead your team to greatness. You want to be a master of your craft, and that's an intrinsic motivation. Nobody paid you to be here. There's no bonus I'm going to give in the end. You're here because you're interested in becoming a master of your craft. And the same goes for your team. How can you help them do that? And that will give them an intrinsic motivation. The third intrinsic motivator is autonomy. A sense of control, a sense that I can control my destiny. And one of my first articles in Fast Company, you can look it up, is stress is making you micromanage, and this is making everything worse. And again, this was very controversial at the time. I remember one of the readers sent it to their boss, and the boss really attacked me personally. He had said, "Oh, she looks like a kid. Why are you looking to what she says?" Because I've looked at the research around micromanagement. Seriously, if you're being micromanaged for a long time, your probabilities to have a heart attack go up. Micromanagement literally kills people. So as people, we want to be masters of our own destiny. And there's a fine balance here, because the more our team has mastery, the more autonomy we can give them. If they're new, they will need a lot more guidance. And again, use your judgment. Use your judgment and situational leadership. When do I need to be a coach? When do I need to be really guiding them and be a mentor and really telling them what to do because they're very inexperienced, very new in the business? How can you give your teams more autonomy? And by the way, money might be, it's an extrinsic motivation, but in the personal side, money gives you more autonomy. A lot of us that we want more money, especially entrepreneurs, it is because they will give us more autonomy. Money, freedom of money will give us the freedom to say no to the clients we don't want to work for or with, to say no to investors. Let me look at some more comments. Recognition is an extrinsic factor, can be achieved by empowering them, clear career path, decision-making power, and ensure they feel valued in the organization. This is a fantastic comment, Palav. And I love the clear career path, decision-making power, which is the autonomy we were talking, feeling valued. Yes, you're very close to your team, not only good, but also in bad moments. Yes. And I was watching a presentation this morning from one of my mentors, and she was, I had a breakthrough watching that presentation. I'm going to share it with you now, because it's related to that you're close to your team, not only in good, but also bad moments. So the mentor was Melanie Layer, and her argument was in one of her paid programs. Her argument was, what separates, we all spend the same time at school. What separates the ones of us that had great results and grades, and the ones who didn't. We all spent almost 40 hours a week, more or less, at work. Why some of us have great results and some of us don't? Let me know before I reveal the answer if you have a guess. And let me preempt this. It's not IQ. I've been in some rooms, in many rooms with some of the smartest people in the world. High IQ, intellectual capacity, does not guarantee performance. Trust me on this. Okay, I haven't received any guesses yet, so I will reveal what separates when we have results and money, the two axes. What separates, there's a third axis, which is the focused energy. What separates the ones who do well and the ones who don't is how do you show up? Are you present? If you are a student, are you there listening and writing notes and being fully present? Or are you there like, that's what makes the difference. If you are a leader, and that's why I was inspired by the comment, you're close to the team, are you there present? I was crying for 2 hours today. I didn't know if I could come on for the live because I'm so emotionally invested in the relationship with my team member. And I was really affected when something, we were not aligning on something, our expectations were different. I was thinking, this needs to be a win-win for it to work. Can we make it a win-win? Or I will go in and I will feel like a victim and resentful, or she will come in and she will feel like a victim and resentful. And the fact that this was not clicking immediately, and I said, let's take some time to think of it, this affected me. I was crying for 2 hours, and my husband said, why are you not saying this transactional? Because for me, it was not about the money. This was more around, can we align so we can feel that this is a fair solution for either of us? And the reason is that this is how I lead. I put a lot of investment of energy into the relationship. And that, when it works, has people that are motivated to work in my business. I put a lot of focused energy here to be with you, and that's attracting you to pay attention to what I'm saying, because this is it. I'm not distracted looking on my phone, being emotionally invested, having your full energy on what you're doing, whether this is a relationship with your employee, whether it's this course you're doing. This is what makes the difference. Let me see some more comments. Caring for what we do. I think motivation is a key factor for success. If you're not motivated, believe in what you do, or don't feel valued, then you won't perform. Yes. And motivation as well. It's love for your craft and its meaning. Oh, I got it now. These are your answers to the question. They came with a little bit delay. Yes. All of this. Motivation, and that we're talking about the same, being present, love for your craft. That's when you're present because you love what you're doing. Let me see. I have a longer comment. Besides feeling weakness, as I mentioned, I look for a match of, let me bring this here because it will be easier for you. I look for a match of attitudes, personality as well, combined with filling roles in regards to various metrics. Belvin roles as needed. If it is not about short period projects, strong focus on attitude and personality, mentor, coach the people on skills is easier than work on personality and attitude. 100%. I really agree with that. I think attitude, you cannot fix attitude. And I've learned this the hard way. You can teach people skills. It's really hard to fix their attitude. By growing the people, by mentoring and coaching, we will see a lot of energy and enthusiasm. Yes. Harold, thank you for this contribution. I think this was world-class tips, and thank you for sharing your experience. Linda says, I can see that you care. Oh, Linda, don't make me cry again. All right. So, share your passion with your team. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about how to inspire the team. We talked about how to motivate, intrinsic motivators, extrinsic motivators. How can you inspire the team? How can you inspire people in general? So passion, it is one. The more present you are. Storytelling. We are storytelling animals, like we were storytelling through the cave time. How can you tell stories to bring what you want to life? Whether it's your customer stories, your team stories. Storytelling is one of the toolkits that, one of the tools that a lot of leaders neglect. You're sharing your personal stories as a leader to help the team understand where you're coming from. One of the CEOs I was coaching, it's this company that has a lot of autonomy. He told the team how he came up with that culture. That it was when he was building the business as a side hustle, he was a leader in the previous business. He was an employee. And because he was building the side hustle, he kind of neglected the people there. And then what happened is that people flourished and had the best performance ever. And then he realized, oh, actually, when I was micromanaging them, I was hindering their performance. It was a huge lesson for him. And this became some of the legends, some of the stories in his new company. That this is how our CEO figured out through this story of neglecting the team and feeling guilty about it because he was building the side hustle. The team flourished and had the best performance. This is a story that is in the legends of the new company, that they have a huge autonomy because the CEO got it. With inclusivity and common shared goals. Yes. Yes. I have a full chapter in my book called Successful Meetings about inclusion. This was not for me to touch in this 4-day masterclass, which was more the 4Ds. But it becomes more and more important because we focus a lot of diversity and diverse teams, and this is good. But then when we get diverse people, we do not include, if you don't feel included in our meetings, in the team. So being very conscious of that we might have unconscious biases is very, very important. I was coaching another leader recently, and I want to talk about, you reminded me about this inclusivity. And he was in a calibration session, and he said that the other leader was putting very, very high performance to one of their team members. And my client said, actually, I don't agree with that. I haven't seen that performance. And immediately when I hear that, because I have had this experience when I was an employee of people that don't know you from other departments weighing in your calibration. I said, wait a minute, this is a person from a different department. You probably don't have a lot of awareness of their work. So you going and saying, I don't agree, it's okay, but do you have data on that? Can we hold it with a piece of salt that you may not have all the information about the performance, A, and B, when you don't have all the information, you fill in the gaps with your unconscious biases. And I said that, and so it happened that this person was an ethnic minority. So I said, okay, my client still didn't admit it, that this was implicit racism there. But it's something to be conscious that when we don't have a lot of information, unconscious bias can fill in the gaps. People need to feel ownership of what they do to feel motivated. Yes. Michael Neal said that we can bring that caring intention to almost anything, like washing the dishes, as if your life depended on it. Even the most mundane tasks can be a source of joy and meaning if we choose to create the conditions for this to happen within ourselves. Thank you, Linda, for sharing that. I love Michael Neal. By the way, Michael Neal was the inspiration. I left Google. I watched one of his talks, Making the Impossible Possible. He was in London. And then after the talk, I went back home. I told my husband I'm quitting. And the next day I submitted my resignation. So if you're not aware of Michael Neal's work, I highly recommend it. How else do you inspire people? There's something as well on the way you speak, on your methods, how clear it is. Can you make it more tangible? One of the best examples I have is when Steve Jobs launched the iPod. He said, 100 songs in your pocket. Making it so visual, so simple, so tangible. How can you, when you need to communicate something important to your team, maybe you want to use a metaphor or a prop or something unexpected to call their attention? And the last thing I want to say about inspiration is probably not two more things. One is when there is a negotiation happening, what's important is for people not to feel manipulated. So we might want to forgive. We need to respect people's free will rather than the old salesman. Before you said you were going to buy the car, will you have it in red or in blue? This is manipulation. Nobody wants to be pushed. Nobody wants to feel manipulated. So when we're having these uncomfortable conversations, can we respect the other person's free will? Can we not assume anything? Can we ask? This is something to bear in mind, respecting other people's free will. And then empathy. How can we get really to understand how our team members think? What excites them? Because I heard a lot of you're thinking, how can I motivate my team? And it's totally different. I remember when I was managing a team when I was at Google, I had a person that his motivation was travel. It wasn't the money, it wasn't the title. He wanted to travel. And unless I had taken the time to really understand what is it that this person wants, and also what causes pain in this person, because by understanding them, you will be able to adapt and motivate them because you really understand where they're coming from. We are on 27 minutes. I wonder whether I should talk. Would you guys want to talk a little bit about action planning, or should we wrap it here? Do you have any more questions on that, or should I move on to talk a little bit about how to plan for action? I think this discussion around motivation and inspiration has been phenomenal, and thank you for all your contributions. You know what? Why not? It's my last session. Let's give some more value here. I haven't worked with any business that hasn't told me that they have a deadlines issue. They are missing their deadlines. Yes, please. Yes. Thank you, Mary. Thank you for giving me some encouragement here to keep on going. So they're missing deadlines. Are you, my dear leaders, missing deadlines in your business? Is this something that's happening, or you've cracked this? And everybody thinks that it's a problem their team has. Their team is not delivering. And it was something I read. It's from Kahneman, the Nobel Prize, the Think Fast and Slow, the Nobel Prize winner, that he coined the term planning fallacy. Planning fallacy is that we overestimate the results of what we're going to do, and we underestimate the time it's going to take us and the cost. And you have these examples. The Royal Opera in Australia, it was created, I think, 10 years later than the original plan, and how many times more expensive. And an airport in Toronto, it was $2 billion more when it was originally planned. And apparently, around 80% of our projects fall victim of the planning fallacy. They take more time, they cost more money. So what can we do? I have 4 tips for you. What can you do to avoid the planning fallacy with your team and get things done? 1, plan for obstacles. We talked about day 1, define the problem, define the vision. Once you've come up with in the do stage and you've developed ideas, you decided what you're going to do, plan for obstacles. And you can plan for obstacles, use the word structure. I'm going to recommend for you to use is, if this happens, then do that. If people get sick while we're working on this, then this is what we're going to do. If the delivery doesn't reach us on time, then this is what we're going to do. Plan for obstacles. If then. That will help you really be prepared and also have a more realistic view of how long this is going to take or what's the potential cost. The second tip is break it into milestones. Because it's easier to say, oh, I did that when I was writing my book, for example. I think for the moment I signed, I had 5 or 6 months to deliver my first manuscript to Penguin. And this was a huge project, and this book would not have been written if I had not broken it into milestones, and it was week by week, those 5, because I needed to send it to my first editor, and then I wanted to send it to the beta readers, and then I wanted to do this and this and this. So agile methodology can help with this, because they do 2-week sprints, and then they can be more agile. They can design the next two-week sprints. They can adapt to their environment rather than having a huge project. Oh, I'm going to write the book in 5 months and not breaking it into milestones. Only when I broke it, I realized, is this really realistic? Is this possible? And if it is, how many words do I need to write per day? And when do the beta readers need to be ready to go to read it and give me feedback? I have one comment here. Plan a minimal viable product outcome. Have enough backlog, enough buffers to address obstacles. Go with milestones, including retrospectives. Yes, Harold. And then this is a lot of the agile methodology of having retrospectives and having like a minimal. This is a lot of the agile methodology. And actually, one of my clients, he said he can move faster. He's in engineering if he doesn't have to commit a delivery date to sales. Because if he has to commit on a delivery date, he will add all these buffers, and it will probably roll Murphy's Law. Is it Parkinson's Law or Murphy's Law? I don't remember, that the work will expand to take the time you allocate on it. So by doing a minimal viable product or outcome, you just move faster, because you say, this 2 weeks, this is what I'm going to ship and do and ship. So the third tip I have for you to avoid the planning fallacy is compare with other projects. How long did they take? How much did they cost? And this is something we almost never do. And Kahneman has a great story in one of his articles that he was in a team in Israel. They were building a curriculum for a course for the Israeli government. And they thought they were going to do it in 18 months. And they asked an expert, how long does it take for other teams? And he said 40% never make it, and on average 7 years. And they ignored it. And it took them 8 years, and the curriculum was never used. If they had listened to that expert that said, other teams, it takes them 7 years. And by the way, you guys are not better equipped or have bigger potential. Comparing you with other teams, you're not better placed to finish this sooner. If they had listened, they will avoid a lot of years of frustration. Okay, confidence in planning needs to account for the type of tasks you're trying to deliver. Complex problems include a lot of unknowns and lay themselves best for experimentation and validation before clarity on end path. Let me bring this, because this is a great comment. Are easier to estimate. End path is visualized and can be confidently estimated. Complicated or more obvious and proven problems are easier to estimate. I love this comment. And the reason is, and I was coaching a team about this, because some people hated projects and some people loved projects. And I was taking projects for granted. And then the people that hated projects in this team, when they shared their arguments, I was like, hadn't thought about that. And their argument was, if you have many unknowns, like Desiree says, if you're building something innovative, by making it a project, you might make a project the wrong thing, really. Before you say something is a project, you need to kind of be more sure that this is what you want to do. But if you're experimenting and you have a lot of unknowns and we don't know, by creating a project, you might actually waste a lot more resources. So be very careful when actually you use projects. And in this company, we said, when there is a legal requirement and we need to do a change because there's a legal deadline, that's a freaking project. Like, unless you make it a project you won't deliver on time. But when we're experimenting of what's the best feature to achieve that goal, you need to be a little bit more fluid rather than this is the first deliverable. You can say this is the experimentation stage. You need to be a lot more careful in order to have the confidence in planning. Thank you, Desiree. Final tip for great action planning and great delivery, really. And this is a big one. This is around collaboration. And this is probably one of the insights I share most often with my coachees. Why do teams, especially if you're leading a cross-functional team, struggle so much to collaborate? And you might have noticed that the silos in our businesses are huge, the competition, people not sharing information, people not collaborating on decisions. Why is it so hard? And you, as a leader, you might try to do everything. You might want to assign a project leader, and you might give funding to an collaboration initiative. And then you realize they're not playing ball. They're not sharing information. They're not doing joint meetings. They're just staying in their silos. The collaboration is not working. So what's the reason for that? Any guesses? Let's have some guesses here until I read Harold's comment. Harold agrees, Desiree, yes, you need to know your people is one more dimension. Some are good at estimating, some are overly cautious and will add bigger buffers already. Others are overly confident and always deliver late. Yes. Why do people struggle to collaborate? I'm creating some suspense on this because this is one of the biggest aha moments I had. And that's why this is inside. I'm sharing it with my teams, with my coaches the most often. Okay, I'll start talking about it. I haven't received any comments. I know there's some delay. The reason that collaboration initiatives fail very often is because people are afraid, or departments are afraid of losing control and legitimacy and autonomy in the organization and sense of identity. For example, I was coaching a team, marketing and product needed to collaborate in order to do a big launch, and it wasn't working. And sometime this escalated because marketing had booked some advertising, but the product would not be ready. They were not talking to each other. This was a disaster of collaboration. But the reason they were not sharing the information is because product didn't want marketing to dictate the features. This was their thing. They didn't want to collaborate. They didn't want to give control. And if they were collaborating in marketing to dictate the features, then what was their role in their company? They were losing their sense of legitimacy and identity in the company. So having this insight of how can I give security to people that even if they have to collaborate, even if they have to give in some of their control, maybe you need to give them more autonomy in other areas. Maybe you need to really make them feel secure that they're a valuable part of the organization, that the collaboration is not threatening their use and legitimacy in the business. Sometimes, Rhea says, teams' cross-functional environment can have contradictory targets to achieve, which then stops collaboration. That's a fantastic insight. And I have this when I discuss about conflict. A lot of the times conflict is systemic tensions. And a lot of the times they have different incentives. Exactly. If someone wants revenue and the other wants product delivery, and compliance wants that nobody is sued, and sometimes those incentives are contradicting, then there's conflict, and we think the conflict is personal, but it's not personal. It's a misalignment of incentives. And as a leader, it's something you need to think about. How can I align the incentives? If I need people to collaborate, how can I align their incentives better? So these are my 4 tips for action planning. Plan for obstacles, break it into milestones, ask other people who did similar projects how long it took them and how much did it cost, and address the barriers to collaboration, whether it is, as Rhea said, systemic tensions and misaligned incentives, or simply psychological need to feel control and autonomy and legitimacy as a role in the organization or as a department in the organization. All right. I would love for you to now, I recognize some names. You've been in all 4 masterclasses. The masterclass, you can, if you missed the other days, you can find them in my profile for now. We're not going to move them for now. I'd love for you to share your biggest insight, your biggest takeaway, either from today, if you were here just today, either from the 4-day masterclass. I'd love us to get some juicy insights for us to remember. If you can start posting those. And as I'm waiting for this, and then I will move on to talk some of the very helpful, Caterina, thank you. I will move on. If you want to stay, this is the optional part. This was the part I wanted to share. I'm happy to stay if you have more questions and answer them in the end. So if you feel complete for the day, write your biggest insight, and I'll see you in the internet. If you want to stay, I'll share a little bit more about how, if you're interested, how you can work with me in the team. And yeah, I'll move on to work that while you're writing your insights. So the program I wanted to talk about today is the Team Path, which is the team coaching. And this is one of my favorite programs. That's why I wrote a book about meetings, to share all my insights and how to make teams work. That's why I run this masterclass. I love working with teams because I believe there's nothing more important than the feeling of belonging and power that comes from being a part of a powerful, cohesive team that makes an impact. So I love this work. And it's been blown up after the pandemic because more teams are feeling disconnected and they want to feel closer together. So I do this either in person. This is the only reason I would travel. I'm traveling in January and I'm traveling in February to coach teams in different parts. And I do it virtually as well. This is usually, if I do travel, is half a day, then dinner, and then the other morning, half a day. And we do it once a quarter. And the program has 2 quarters. And I interview the team and I design this as a program, as a journey of, and it usually starts with what's the coaching, the agreement. How does the team want to be with each other? What's their purpose? When do they need to be a team and when do they need to be a group? What are the things they need to collaborate on? We work on productive conflict. We work on toxic behaviors if we have them. And it depends on what the team needs. Sometimes it will turn to facilitation and it will help them make an important decision. I worked on the team on what their values were. So I love this work. If you think your team could benefit from having an offsite, either virtual, to work on a little bit rather than in the team, on the team, take a step back and see how the team can work closer together, get in touch, or it's theleaderpath.com/teampath. And let me read some of the insights. I have it. Let me share some of the insights that people shared. Very insightful session. Many thanks, Caterina. Let's see. From the 4 days, addressing hidden profile biases in meetings, using productive conflict to flesh out solutions to problems identified. And definitely I will be using the toxic behavior exercise that you talked about in day 3. Aligning the team, understanding of goals and behaviors is key. Thank you, Mary. This is amazing. Thank you so much. This has been really useful. I especially like the insights of bias and conflict from yesterday's session, as this is something I've seen a lot with teams I've worked with. Definitely something to look into further. Yes, and shameless plug on the book here. The book goes a lot deeper on conflict. I also have your books now, since I hold a lot of meetings, since remote working is more common, and I want to make my meetings more effective and inspiring. Thank you, Ray. The other thing I wanted to share is I have this workshop. It's called New Year, New Frontier. That's the next thing coming. This is 6th of January. And it's going to be so much fun. We're going to close the year in the most inspiring way. We're going to set ourselves up for, in all areas of our lives, what's the intention, what's the goal, what's the plan for 2022. This is 2 hours on the 6th of January. This is just £55. I made it really low ticket because I wanted people to come and start the year with me. I didn't want to have a huge financial barrier. So if you wanted an easy next step and do something fun for the new year and continue this conversation with me, new year, new frontier, that's the thing I would most recommend. And that's all. I don't have any more questions or comments. This has been a great journey. It was such a pleasure being live with you on LinkedIn, having the engagement, and I want to be closer to my LinkedIn community, and I loved that you showed up for it. I showed up. We had this amazing conversation. We shared so many insights, and thank you. And I'll see you in the internet. Take care.